Hi, good afternoon and welcome to the Augusta Metro Chamber of Commerce third Thursday. We are excited to be using this new platform, StreamYard, and so glad you all could join us today. My name is Blair Marvin. I am the Vice President of the Augusta Metro Chamber of Commerce, and we are honored to be hearing a presentation today from Dr. Tony Robinson, who is the Site Director at Rural Sourcing, a very important business and member of our community. Dr. Tony Robinson was introduced in 2017 as the Site Director for Rural Sourcing, who is a leading provider of US-based IT outsourcing services. And so as the director of the company's Software Development Center in Augusta, Georgia, Tony is certainly a well-known name in the community and an expert in the area that he will be discussing today. We're going to hear a little bit about digital transformation, talking at a broad high level of what we need to know, covering areas such as data management, transforming IT infrastructure, as well as other IT related topics that will apply to a variety of different organizations via industry and size. So thanks again for joining us today. If you would like to ask a question, the comment section is at the top right corner of your screen, and you can simply enter one in the comment section for us to use during Q&A following the presentation. We will present this to you via email as a recording, as well as host it on our website under our events section. So there'll be opportunity to refresh and be able to view the content not just today, but at a later date if you wish. And so thanks for joining us. We hope that you know you will get great value out of this. And I'd like to now formally introduce and turn it over to Dr. Tony Robinson. Tony, thank you so much for being with us today.
Blair, it's an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for the opportunity and the warm introduction and kind welcome.
We also wanted to acknowledge and show appreciation to Rural Sourcing for being our sponsor today and for contributing to making this happen. So I will turn it over.
Absolutely. Thanks, Blair, again. And also a big shout out and thank you to the Augusta Chamber of Commerce for holding events like this. This is a great way to continue supporting our community and growth of businesses. And I will tell you that this is an example of digital transformation, right? You all have adjusted to the reality of this pandemic to make sure that you can continue supporting this community. So we appreciate that as well. I'm going to pull up my screen here, get that thing set up, and then say a couple of other words. So I want to make sure that you all can see the correct screen. Can you see that?
It looks wonderful. You're good to go.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. Thank you so much. And yeah, glad that Rural Sourcing could be a sponsor here. This is a big part of what RSI does in this community. Our CEO, Monty Hamilton, had a great vision when he thought about building this company with an emphasis around colleagues, clients, and community. And this is that community component. And so RSI does this in the various communities where it is just as a bit of a description for who we are. We are a software development company. As Blair mentioned, here in Augusta, we are well over 100 strong software developers in Augusta, right downtown. But we work with clients across the continental USA. The vast majority of our clients are in other locations, but that's really nice, right? Because we have software developers who are seated here in Augusta, Georgia, but working on projects for really large Fortune 100 organizations, names, if I mentioned, you'd absolutely be familiar with. Large clients, but we also work with medium-sized clients and also smaller clients. And so this topic is interesting and relevant in part because this is what we do for our clients, digital transformation, right? Helping them to be a lot more effective in a more virtual world. My topic today is going to be at a high sort of business level. It's a fun topic, but it's a broad topic. There are a lot of things that we could discuss. And so we have about an hour. I don't want to tell you everything about digital transformation. I just want to make sure that you understand it well enough to have the right questions to be able to ask and have answered. And the other thing I'll tell you is that I have a bias around business, meaning that I believe that technology is a tool that helps you to address real business problems. And so you can think and should think of digital transformation as a part of that. And so we're going to revisit some tools with which we're very familiar to create a context for this conversation around digital transformation. And then we're going to look at some more novel resources that you've likely heard of, but want to have a better understanding of what those tools are and potentially how they can help you. But before we jump into that, I think we have to start with the proverbial elephant that's in the room. And if you see this image, you know exactly what that is, COVID-19. And so it's a very real thing. And by the way, it is evidence that while digital transformation has always been important, it is absolutely critical in this environment today. I mean, this thing has completely transformed the way that we live, the way that we work, the way that we play. It is what you would call a social disruptor and changes the way we interact. If you look back around February when we first became aware of it, you understand how our entire world since then to now has changed, where we work, how we reach our customers, how we interact with our employees, et cetera. All of that's changed. And so it's really decimated some of those social constructs that we can think of. And now innovation is not just a nice to have. Innovation is now necessary, not just for accelerating or excelling, but also for surviving. And so part of what we'll talk about today is surrounding that notion. And just to help you to understand what I'm going to try to do, we talked about helping you to have the right questions to ask. We're going to sort of, around these topics, say, what are the questions? And so if we look at this COVID-19, part of the question that we have to ask and ponder and even answer is, how is this tied to digital transformation? And quite frankly, what does this mean for you? So we'll talk about some of that. That phrase is often thrown around, digital transformation. And it can mean many different things to many different people or individuals. And as we said, it's a pretty broad topic, but I wanted to just set the stage around a definition that we can coalesce and acknowledge that it's about changing what you do. It's about overhauling some of your business processes, strategies, some of your competencies, and introducing new technological opportunities to do those things into the organization. And at the end of the day, we want to achieve some desirable outcomes. And so digital transformation allows us to do that. And as we talk through this discussion, we'll address a lot more of those. We'll do a deeper dive. But why should you even be thinking about this? Why should you, in your business, whether it's a large organization or a medium-sized nonprofit or a smaller shop, why should you even be considering digital transformation? Well, there are a few reasons. One of which is it's going to allow you to have significant business insights, right, about your customers and your colleagues or your employees. It's going to allow you to know a lot more so that you can make better decisions. It's going to allow you to gather and control significantly more data. And that's the name of the game these days. So if you've got apps, if you're doing things online, one of the advantages that companies have is gathering that data. So digital transformation allows you to gain access to that data. It's going to simplify some of the processes and practices that you currently have, which hopefully will allow you to be a lot more effective and or efficient. Certainly going to allow you to be more collaborative, because rather than exchanging sheets of paper or doing things in an analog way, it's going to allow you to do things in a more virtual or digital way. And it can also allow you to reinvest in your organization and reinvent yourself. So there are lots of benefits. And if you look at all those benefits, if you're like me, you got to be wondering, okay, well, why doesn't everybody go through this process of digital transformation? Because it's not easy. It's because there are some challenges. And sometimes it may not make sense for some organizations, or one of the challenges can be if your priorities are misaligned. Right? So you can, on the one hand, say that we want to go through this process, but you have to make sure that everyone is aligned in going through this process because it does represent change. Another challenge can be just culturally. Do you have the right kind of culture that would allow you to adopt these new policies and practices? There can be budgetary constraints, and that's ever more real, never more real than in the pandemic that we're currently experiencing. So there's some budgetary constraints that can limit you, and also time constraints. Right? This thing is not going to happen at the snap of a finger. It requires a lot of effort over some period of time. We'll talk about infrastructure. You may have some legacy infrastructure or systems that don't handle this kind of transformation as easily, but we'll talk about what some of the remedies for some of those can be. And the last thing I'll tell you around that is that change is just hard. That's another obstacle here. Everybody talks about innovation and how awesome it is until you ask somebody to change. So we're all excited until you ask that someone to do something different. And so digital transformation requires a level of comfort around change. Right? So now that we know what it is by definition, I want to make sure that we can wrap our heads around that more conceptual discussion of digital transformation and talk about some very real examples. These are all, for the most part, common to us. We understand all of these logos that you see on the screen, but they all represent and reflect digital transformation. So if you look at cars.com, it has changed the way that we do research about cars, the way we test cars, right? And the way that we buy cars. In the old days, you'd go down to the dealership and you'd kick the tires and look under the hood and maybe take it for a test drive and go through that entire process. Now you can do the vast majority of that online. And even before you go down, if you go down to the dealership to test drive it, you can collect a lot of information about the specific cars that you're interested in buying and around the dealership. And a lot of people are just buying the cars online and saying, I have enough information to make a decision about this car. I understand that this is a reliable vehicle. I understand that this is a reputable organization. I understand what the cost of financing the car is. I have all of that information. I filled out my online application. I'm ready to go. So cars.com has completely transformed the way that we buy cars, in part because they represent a digital transformation. If you look at eBay, right? What is eBay? It's a large online garage sale. And again, in the old days, you'd have to walk around your neighborhood and look for signs to find things. Now it's all on a platform called eBay. And so you can go online and either buy outright any goods or services that you want, or you can bid on them. And then you have lots of information, again, around the individuals with whom you're engaging in business. You can look at their reviews. You can look at all kinds of information. Wikipedia is another good example. I'm giving away my age when I say you can remember the encyclopedia salespeople walking around door to door selling encyclopedias. And now you don't see that these days because all of that information is online on Wikipedia. And so it has changed how we engage with the kind of information that we need and how organizations engage with us. Amazon, it is ubiquitous these days. But if you think about it, Amazon changed, first of all, how we consume literature, books, initially, and then changed how we consume absolutely everything. And during a pandemic, Amazon, because they had previously gone through this digital transformation, has benefited significantly. But these days, you don't just buy books, you buy absolutely everything that you need. You buy clothes, you buy detergent, you buy food, you can buy everything on Amazon. So while it's ubiquitous today, it has transformed how we engage with goods and services because it went through a digital transformation. And then we have Simply Safe, which is a way to secure your home. They initially did it with hardware, wires running through your house, and that on some level represents a transformation, a bit more analog. But these days, you can just buy the cameras, no hardware, simply attach it to a T-Mobile account, a cellular account, or a Verizon account, and store the data, the images in the cloud, and just be up and running. So SimpliSafe, along with some other organizations, have changed the way that we experience the world around us. And so the question that you should be pondering, the thing that you should be asking is, similar to these organizations some time ago, we know what right looks like. We know what success is. How can or should you re-envision your business approach to achieve whatever goals you have? Goals around growing in terms of individuals, or growing from revenues, or growing geographically. How should you re-envision your business approach to achieve those goals? So let's talk about some things that will help provide context. We know the definition, we've seen some examples. This is another wonderful example. This is probably one of the beginnings, the World Wide Web, the beginnings of the digital transformation age, if you will. And when you look at this and you recall that this begun in 1989, we've been on this journey around digital transformation for many, 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 many years. And the World Wide Web helped us to do that. So you all see that HTTP on your website, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. You see that, and the initial web browsers were text-based, and now it's all graphic, and it's a lot more interactive using the web browsers. But this thing, the World Wide Web, the internet, allowed us to behave differently, to think differently. And part of how it did it was it had these HTTP, the Hypertext Protocol, but it also allowed you to experience the information through a web browser while it's sat on another web server somewhere else. And back in the day, that first web browser that we can remember, I guess it was around the mid-90s, was the Netscape. And since then, there have been lots of other browsers that have come and gone, but this is kind of the beginnings of the digital transformation. Now, how is the way that you're using your website, how has it changed the way that you have evolved, or the way that you should continue to evolve? And what I mean by that is that some websites are used for information, and some websites are used for interaction. And then some websites are used for e-commerce, and some are used for all of the above. But if you're not doing some of the things that most websites can or are doing, you gotta ask yourself, what do I need to be doing differently? How do I need to be thinking about this differently so that I can take advantage of this? When the World Wide Web came to be, a number of businesses picked up on this notion of e-commerce and immediately adjusted. And today, again, it's normal, but it wasn't normal back then. In fact, I have a friend who many of you will know, Tony, who is in the pine straw business, and he often shares how the way he moved or sold pine straw was very different than the way he did it with e-commerce. E-commerce allowed him to expand beyond, say, the Augusta area, and beyond moving pine straw in ways that weren't as cost effective. And so by his building a website, he not only was able to sell pine straw in Augusta, Georgia, but he was also able to sell it in New York and in Texas and in other places, and do it in a way that allowed him to grow his business. So while this e-commerce represents a type of digital transformation that was initiated, quite frankly, a long time ago, what are some of the emerging trends today that can help you to develop a competitive advantage with your business? What are some things that you're seeing today where you need to adjust? And by the way, if you're not engaged in e-commerce and your business allows you to do so, you need to think about that, right? And this is context. This is not new stuff. This is old stuff, but still some organizations are not doing it. You need to think to yourself, for instance, if I'm a yoga instructor, how can I deliver that service online? If I'm a basketball trainer, how can I deliver that service online? Like you need to be creative and thoughtful about how you can begin to deliver for some of your customers and clients online. And e-commerce is certainly one of the ways that you can do that. The pandemic has also changed the way that we communicate, and this has been a process, a process of change that's been undergoing for a long time, but it has drastically changed the way that we communicate, right? So if we start with something as simple as an email, back in the day, you would send a memo around the office, and these days, you send emails, and that's, again, not novice. That's something that we've been familiar with for quite some time here. But a platform like Slack that allows you to interact with members of your team. And Slack is essentially, it's not social media, but it's a platform that incorporates some social media, but it also allows you to share documents and to share files, share videos, to interact, to create smaller groups, to create larger groups for working together, to create working rooms, to create spaces where people can talk about their interests, their concerns, different activities. It allows you to, while you're talking to someone, to say, "Hey, let's jump on a video call very quickly," and to do that, or to allow someone to be on a computer and say to another colleague, "I need to talk to you real quick. Can we jump on a call? I'll call you on a Slack call very quickly." So this is not the be-all and end-all, but it's an example of a platform that can allow you to engage in the digital transformation. And if you're not doing this and you have colleagues who are located in different locations, this is a way to pull you together and also have some semblance of your culture in a more virtual setting. Many of us are familiar with Zoom, and so we have probably all been on more Zoom calls than we care to admit. But think about what it would be like if we didn't have Zoom today, if we couldn't do what we're doing today, if we didn't have technologies like the one we're using today to have these kinds of discussions. So much like the Chamber has done, much like RSI has done, much like many organizations are doing, think about how you can communicate more effectively and a digital transformation. This is a step towards digital transformation. So there are lots of tools. Microsoft Teams is another tool that's out there that allows you to work effectively. Voice over internet protocol, right? Before it was all sort of just landlines. And so if you look at how all that's changed, now it's not just landlines. How many folks have landlines even in their homes these days? And if you look at cellular, that top right screen, some of the developing countries have just skipped landlines. They've said, we don't need that hardware. We're going to use internet and cellular towers to skip past that. You should be asking yourself, how or has your team adjusted effectively to communicating internally, and how can you adjust your communication mechanisms to communicate more effectively with your partners who are outside? And if you haven't done it to your satisfaction, what are the tools out there available to you that you can use to more effectively digitally transform so that you can engage with people inside your organization and with individuals and partners outside of your organization? So this is a critical piece to a digital transformation, and just simplifying some of your processes and just being a lot more effective. And so this is one that we all know, social media. What I will tell you is that, yeah, in the beginning, social media made interacting with each other a lot more social, a lot more virtual, I should say. And today, it has affected how we interact with our customers. So the way that we interact with each other, like we look at our phone, we want to get that like, we want to see that people are responding. Through the use of data with your customers, you can collect a lot more than a response. And most people are using some form of social media. Most organizations are doing something with social media to at least get out their message. But we would encourage you to go a step further and think about how you can use social media to collect critical data, to change not only the experience that your employees are having, but also the experience that your customers are having. And by the way, you can also leverage social media to affect potential customers. Much around marketing has changed during the pandemic. You got to ask your question, like, how are you spending your money these days around marketing to reach existing customers and understand their experience, and also to reach potential customers? With social media, with the digital transformation that has already occurred, and how we interact with each other, if you're not using social media to its fullest, if you've not optimized it, you ought to, right? You need to be thinking about how you can use videos to talk about the experience that your current customers are having, to talk about the different verticals where you have expertise, using videos for your customers to give testimonials and to incorporate that in either Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, whatever you feel comfortable using to reach your customers. Understanding how those different areas of social media reach different groups in different ways, right? If you're reaching a younger target audience, then you're much more likely to be able to do that with something like TikTok or Instagram. If you're reaching a group that is more in my age, my demographic group, then you're probably much more likely to have a better impact with Facebook and with LinkedIn. If you want to reach a more business group, right, LinkedIn or Twitter are going to be some of the social media platforms of preference. The message here is that the pandemic has accelerated the need for a larger digital footprint in sales and marketing. And so if you don't see yourself out there, then it's not likely that your existing customers and your future customers will see you out there. And the other really interesting piece here is that a number of these social giants are using things like cloud computing, which we'll talk about during the next couple of slides, to be able to deliver to their customers. So look at what they're doing to reach a broader customer base. Look at how they're doing it. And then you need to think about how you can learn from what they're doing. And so if you look at this slide, one of the questions that you want to ask here is, how do you need to rethink your approach to connecting with your customers via social media? It's not just useful for sending out cool quips or pictures of things. Like, it can be very, very useful in other ways as you go through this digital transformation. So think about that. Now, here's where we get more towards the nitty-gritty of digital transformation, right? So we'll start with cloud computing, cloud storage, and it's often integrated with cloud computing. So, what is a cloud? Well, it's a resource, right? That everyone won't absolutely need, but interestingly, just about everyone is using it to some degree or another. Let's talk about some of the large players. So basically, if you look at cloud storage, it's about how can I put my data assets in a place that can be easily accessed. And there are a number of players in this space, but some of the larger ones are Amazon Web Services, right? Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud Platform. And to understand kind of the lay of the land, historically, Amazon has had such a lion's share of the market, upwards of 80%. These days, I think it's closer to around 60%, because Microsoft is making significant inroads. And so Microsoft is closer to just a ticking above 30%, and Cloud is approaching 10%. And then you have some other players in the market. The question is, which one should you choose? And I can't give you all of the answers today, but can kind of point you in the right direction. It depends on what you need. So for instance, Amazon AWS is considered the #1 provider, and it's great. They're constantly innovating. They're constantly introducing new things. But when we talk about digital transformation and whether or not you have the infrastructure, right? Because there's costs associated with it. Amazon offers something called infrastructure as a service. So even if you don't have the infrastructure, Amazon has it and could allow you to ramp up pretty quickly. Now, there's a cost associated with it, but there's not the same cost, the same capital cost of securing the hardware and the software that you would need to build this infrastructure and then to secure this infrastructure. That's all baked in when you work with someone like Amazon. But it's important to note that like many of the organizations, when we talk about cloud computing, they have something called a shared security model, so that you're also responsible for your security. Amazon and these other providers have a lot of those things in place, but you're responsible for it. You may need to partner with someone who's familiar with these technologies to get you up and running and to sort of keep you running. But just, it's a significantly lower cost than trying to hire all the people that you need to do all the things that will need to be done, keep it up and running. You look at someone like Microsoft Azure, great organization. They already have a footprint in enterprises with their Microsoft Office products and Microsoft 365. And so they can be a great option to offer something like software as a service, where they'll come in, they're already in many of our organizations, or certainly in our organization, and they can provide you not only the cloud service, but lots of other benefits associated with being in that shop. And then there's some people who just love Microsoft. They want to be a Microsoft shop around the office tools that they use, maybe around development.net, et cetera, and around cloud storage. So this can be a great way to pull all that stuff together. The understanding is that all those things tend to work well together. And then you have someone like the Google Cloud Platform, which is inching up. And that's also an innovative firm. Part of what Google is trying to do is they're trying to expand in some key verticals around retail and financial services. But if you're a shop that also has large amounts of data, who knows data better more than Google? So you may say, hey, we feel safer partnering with someone like Google because of their strong expertise in data management. I mean, they're managing arguably more data than any other organization or institution of which I'm aware. And so these are some cloud storage services you can use. But how are we using it today? Right? If you don't have to go this route, the question is, how are you using it today, and how can you? If you have an iPhone, if you have an Android phone, you probably are storing some of your pictures in the cloud. And it's as simple as that. It's a server that exists somewhere else. You don't have to manage that asset. It exists somewhere else. You can access it from anywhere. Dropbox is another great example of a way to partner, right? So that you don't have your files sitting just on your device. You have those things sitting in a cloud that would allow you to partner. Box, Microsoft OneDrive are all examples of where that data can exist anywhere and allow you to collaborate. So these types of services, whether you're looking at some of the large ones, so these ones that we mentioned before, Amazon, Oracle, et cetera, are more attached to cloud computing, which we'll talk about here in a second. And some of the latter ones that we talked about are more for storage. Think about the benefits associated with being able to do something as simple as access a document that you didn't have to keep emailing back and forth. Yeah, great that we went from analog memos that go back and forth to email, but now this is another step in that continued evolution where you can store these files, this data online anywhere and access it from anywhere, right? Change it on the fly and it changes for everyone. So it allows you to collaborate a lot more. It allows you to back up some of your files. Let's say that you don't want to completely be on the cloud. You feel like I need that stuff on my device, but you have some individuals in your organization who are critical for the success, right? If they lose their device, what happens to your data? Well, nothing if you have it backed up to the cloud or if it exists wholly on the cloud. So the online storage, the backup storage, and the ability to sync those documents instantaneously and to collaborate, those are all huge advantages of working with working with cloud storage. Now, for some of these larger players, it's there for larger data sets, right? Because they require a lot more data management. You have things like the data warehouses, except that are online. And with these large data sets, you have access to things like analytics, which is going to be really important for some other things that, again, represent a continuum around digital transformation. So when we think about cloud storage, what's a question that we need to ask? What storage needs do you have? How large is your data? What information do you need? When do you need it? Those are some of the questions that you want to be asking yourself to think about. How should I take the next steps in digital transformation? And again, I'll go back to what we talked about in the very beginning. Technology is a tool that allows you to achieve business goals and solve business problems. You don't have to do everything that's out there. You want to be aware and then do the things that make the most sense for your organization. Natural evolution, continuation around cloud storage is cloud computing. And so this graphic hopefully depicts what we mean by cloud computing. It is a platform that involves infrastructure, right? And then allows your applications and data, et cetera, to sit there. So it's a set of network elements and services that don't have to be managed individually or addressed by you or by some of the other users. Instead, you've got a provider out there who's going to manage your suite of hardware, your software. And so because someone else is handling it for you, this can be thought of as an amorphous cloud. Right? It is somewhere else. It's sort of happening out there somewhere, and it's really easy for us to do once we get set up. There's also some other real benefits around this. So, the on-demand availability of computer system resources and computing power without direct active management is great. And what do we mean by on-demand? Like whatever you need, you can have pretty much instantaneously. Like you don't have to go online or go to another shop and find servers and find applications that allow you to do it. You can get it on demand instantly, depending on the service provider with whom you work. But the other really nice thing, one of the greatest obstacles in digital transformation is infrastructure. So they already have the infrastructure for your applications. They have the infrastructure necessary for data management. And equally, and perhaps more importantly, they have the infrastructure for your security. It's already baked in. A company like AWS, like Azure, like Google are doing this for large organizations, have been doing this, and they have figured out things that will take us a long time, particularly around security, to be able to put in place. So you have not only this infrastructure, but you have a wealth of knowledge and understanding already baked into it, because this is who they are, this is what they do, and they're innovating in ways that will take us a long time to be able to do. So cloud computing is a great approach. I want to remind you, when we talk about security, these providers have, again, shared security models. We have heard about lots of data breaches with large organizations, multi-billion-dollar organizations who are in the cloud. We tend to think, oh, how it's scary, the cloud is dangerous. No, it's so much more secure, quite frankly, than we can make it. In many of those breaches where they were associated with some of these large organizations, when you do a deeper dive, you realize that sometimes they didn't completely fulfill their portion of the shared security model. And so you need to make sure that you understand what the expectations of you are, to make sure that you keep your data secure. But it's not insecure. It is, in fact, very, very secure. And in some cases, a lot more secure than going an alternative route. So when you think about, to sum up some of the benefits, you can minimize your IT infrastructure costs by going with something like cloud computing, where you build your applications online, you deploy your applications online, you keep your data online, et cetera. you can get up and running a lot faster. You can get these applications up and running a lot faster than if you were to use another approach. In another conversation, when we go further into this, we'll talk about things like continuous integration, continuous deployment that just expedites, accelerates the development and deployment of application. It's like a circle. It just goes so fast. And to help create some context, back in the day, it'd take you a long time to build an application. Long time, could be a month, could be a few months, and get it out there. And there's a lot in between that and CI/CD, but essentially CI/CD is you're developing bits and pieces of the application and deploying it, not every day, but multiple times in the day. That's really, really, really fast. So depending on your organization, if you're a more technological organization, this can be a great advantage for you. And if you're an organization that doesn't leverage technology as much, you're very likely using organizations who use this kind of technology. So it may help to inform some of your decision making around that. So you can minimize the infrastructure costs, you can get up and running a lot faster. You can improve the way that you manage and maintain these. You have a server on-site, on-prem, versus having it in the cloud. AWS, Azure, Google, IBM, Oracle, this is their business. This is all that they do. For you, likely, it's not just your business. Like, you have to get a lot of things done, and you need to use the technology or know that the technology is running well to do that. And to be fair now, cloud computing is not for everyone. It is not the be-all and the end-all. It's not recommended for everyone, but it can be a great resource. And then just the burst computing. So just having high computing power at certain times. If you think about your server, your application sits on your server to do whatever it is that you want to do. Right? Let's just say that you have a small mom and pop shop and you're going to start selling cars online, and you build an application and a server to do that. And let's say that you're having some success and you have investors or people who want to partner with you. And you're having so much success that somehow you've been selected to go on Shark Tank. And you're going to go on Shark Tank and pitch your idea and hope that people go to your website to buy cars or widgets or what have you. And just by going on Shark Tank, millions of people get to see it because of the viewership that they have. And let's just say, of those, let's assume a small number, million people, of those million people, a very small percentage decide, oh, I'm curious about this website that sells widgets or cars, and I'm going to go check it out. Say 10%. So you have 100,000 people who are hitting your server all at the exact same time. If it's a smaller organization, you probably have not built your server to accommodate that many hits in that short period of time. And so what happens to your application? It crashes. It goes down. Now, all of those people who came to see can't see. All of the customers who are already with you can't access it. You are losing business, or at least disrupting how your clients or customers do what they need to do. With cloud computing, if 100,000 hit all of a sudden, your service provider will scale up and say, hey, Jane, 100,000 people came to your server. No worries, though. We scaled up. We can accommodate it. Hey, John, 1 million came to your server within an hour time frame. Not sure what happened, but no problem. We scaled up. We accommodated. Cloud computing gives you the ability to scale up quickly. If your organization doesn't need that ability, then this approach in terms of digital transformation may not be the best path, the best route for you, but it's something to think about and something to consider. So you want to ask yourself, how much computing power do I need? Do I need to scale up at a relatively fast rate? And how does this affect achieving my overall business goals and objectives? All right, so this is something that a lot of people are talking about. We'll spend just a little bit of time here because most organizations don't need this, but It's hard to talk about digital transformation and cloud computing and those kinds of things without talking about artificial intelligence. And so what do we mean even by artificial intelligence? Well, it's not natural intelligence like you might find in humans and animals, but it's rather a type of intelligence that's displayed by machines that allows them to mimic, to act like, to decide like natural intelligence. And so these agents or devices perceive its environment and can take actions that maximizes the achievement of goals. To do that now, right? Question is, how do you do that? Certainly, you got to have an application, et cetera, but you need an incredible amount of data to be able to do that. So you think about what a 1-year-old child knows. They've acquired a year of data. What a 10-year-old child knows. They've acquired 10 years of data. What a 20-year-old young adult knows. They have acquired 20 years of data. And in an hour, you're taking in so much information all around you, perceiving sound, perceiving smell, perceiving sight, touch, feeling, emotions, all of those things you're taking in. So in an hour, you can really grow in a year, yet 10, yet 20, even more. So to simulate natural intelligence, you need a lot of data. You need copious amounts of data to be able to do that, for them to make those perceptions, to mimic the perceiving, the learning, the problem solving, the decision-making capabilities that the human mind does. And again, reason for us to marvel at the human mind, what it's like. Another tidbit of information here. So you hear a lot of terms thrown around like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and even deep learning. So what do they mean? Artificial intelligence is sort of the umbrella, like it's the entire universe of computer technology, if you will, that allows any device, machine to sort of behave like, perceive like, more like human intelligence. And machine learning is a subset of the AI application, right? That it learns by itself. It can reprogram itself. So it can digest data. It can do some of the things that allow some of these devices to perform very specific tasks, sort of like robotics, a robotic arm in a plant where they make cars. Right? So, or again, any other kind of device. And deep learning is a subset of machine learning. It's an application that teaches itself, again, to perform specific tasks, but with increased accuracy, increasingly greater accuracy than without. This is not necessarily for everyone, but it's a tool that's out there and is quite frankly cutting edge. All right, so last couple of things here. I want to provide just a little bit of time, at least a little bit of time, to answer some questions. All of that stuff is out there. All of those devices, infrastructure, knowledge, etc., have been out there for a while. Why doesn't everyone do it? Why can't everyone do it? Why can't the ones who want to do it do it? Culture. Culture is the answer. There are benefits of going through a digital transformation, and there are requirements of going through a digital transformation. Some of the benefits certainly include just being able to work from home. And a lot of people work from home. So the wider your digital footprint, the more that your teammates can do from home, the better. And so just from an operational point of view, having a broader digital footprint, going through the continuum, that continue moving further along, gives you some advantage. So it allows people to work from home, and during a time like this, to feel safe in doing it. It allows them the flexibility to take care of and support their family. So if for no other reason, it's worth considering because of that. But there are also some requirements around digital transformation. And so you see, we're talking about an agile project. I want to contrast that with what we call sort of a waterfall project. Just using software development, for instance, or any development of anything, but we'll talk about software. Waterfall development, the way we had done it, all of us had done it previously, was you would go through this lengthy planning process and come up with the ideal thing that you wanted to build, the ideal application, and you would say, this is the thing that we want. After many months of planning, we'll give you 6 months to build it or a year to build it, and then we want you to unbox it, unveil it. Agile takes a very different approach, and that's the kind of shop that RSI is. RSI is an agile shop. We say, hey, give us a big idea of what you want to accomplish, right? And what we call some epics. And then based on those epics, those big features that you want to have in the application, tell us specifically what you'd like to do. So we would ask the question, as a user, I would like to be able to do A, B, and C. This is what I would like to do. And so you talk about all those sort of user stories, and then we would build that thing iteratively. But the difference between taking all that information at the beginning and just building it out is that we would take that information and build it and give you something in 2 weeks. Right? A more agile approach would be give you something in 2 weeks and get your feedback on what do you like. Well, I like all of it, but I'd like to add this one thing. It's not exactly the way I thought of it. Oh, great. We'll make that during the next development cycle. And so we'll add that in. So every couple of weeks, you get a piece of the thing that you're building, right? Imagine building a house and telling the builder what you want, and then they take 6 months to build it and come back 6 months to look at it and to say, oh no, I didn't realize that large window that I had panes in it. Right? That's not what I wanted. I wanted a wide open space so that I could see outside in this area. And the builder said, well, that's not what we saw in the design. What Agile does is allows you to build it incrementally and take a look at it. The extent to which your shop is more comfortable with an iterative process like that would allow you to transform much more easily. Communication, collaboration, it requires a lot more transparency, a lot more communication within the team. The notion of ideas, of innovation, like it's a great thing, but you got to have a culture that's comfortable with it. You need to understand some of the security protocols that you have in place. So there are some requirements. Like I said, agile and innovative, communication and being transparent, having a clear mission and goals, knowing exactly what you want to do, having some champions for the change that you want to introduce, and then just being so much more comfortable with collaborating, either before the transformation or during the transformation. So question to consider here is, what are the next steps that you and your team need to understand and to address to see if you even have the appetite for digital transformation, and whether that appetite exists at different levels within your organization. So that was a mouthful, and we have barely scratched the surface. I want to thank you for listening, and now I would love to turn it back over to Blair to see if we have any questions or comments from the audience.
Well, thanks so much, Tony. As always, the information is greatly appreciated and your expertise is so valuable. We know your time is a premium, so we really appreciate you joining us today. We do have a few questions.
Yep.
So our first one is, with the climate that we're in, is there one particular digital platform that you have found to be the best overall? And obviously different platforms have their strengths and weaknesses and are used for different means, so it depends on the use. But just in terms of branding, and we're constantly at the chamber even evaluating that. Interactive meetings, webinars, I know Zoom's kind of the go-to, but in your expert opinion, have you found something innovative and different out there that's kind of a generic overall best platform?
Yeah, there's not a single answer, but there are some things that make it easier for you to get in. So Slack is a great platform if you have a team large enough to take advantage of it, right? So if you've got, a couple of dozen colleagues and you need to interact and do some things much more interactively, that's a great platform. For video calls, Zoom is great. Google also has really stepped up their game, and Microsoft has stepped up their game. Zoom has invested a lot. Like Zoom has been doing it for a while, but it's not the be all and the end all. The recommendation would be try it and see what you think. But that's potentially a great place to start. Around cloud computing, you go with any of the three that we mentioned, sort of the top three. If you needed that kind of service, you'd be perfectly fine. Another great interactive tool around offices is something called G Suite or Google Suite. Right? So Google Suite allows you to have your Google Docs, allows you to have your Google Sheets, allows you to have your Google presentations all in one place. It allows you to use Gmail, right? So it's a great platform that allows you to do a lot of that. Microsoft also 365 has its platform that allows you to do that. So if you're using Microsoft, you may say, hey, we just want to continue in this direction. But if you're not, you may say, I want to go with Google. So it really depends on what you want to do, but there are so many good tools out there. Any of the ones that we mentioned during this conversation, I think you would be happy with, and then it's just a matter of tweaking specifically what you want it to do, and you'll find that they have more features and benefits as well. Hopefully that answered the question. Great question.
Okay, the next question is around security. What are some of the security concerns or things that you need to take into consideration when you're transforming and transferring data over to a digital platform?
Yeah, the process of doing it itself is not an issue. The question is, what have you been doing all the while? So for instance, your applications. If you're a software development shop, or if you're a company that another software developer company has made applications, websites, et cetera for you, there are all kinds of security risks there. So we use something called the top 10 OWASPs. And it's about a number of security protocols that all software developers should take into mind when they're making application. Someone may have made a website for you, may have made an application that you use internally, but it may or may not be secure. Some other things that you want to take into consideration is just security around your networks, trying to make sure that people can't go into your parking lot and access your network. We were working with a potential client that came out of California, and the first test that they did when they were talking about working with software development companies is they sat in the parking lot and tried to hack their system to see if they could get in. They did that. They tried to hack ours before they came in to have the meeting with us, and they said, you've already passed the first test. We can't hack your system. But that's because we take security very seriously. So, making sure that you have your network secure, make sure that your devices are secure, your hardware is secure, and some basic things you can do there. And then around data, if you go to the cloud, they already have lots of protocols and infrastructure in place to secure. If you have your data in a server somewhere, you want to make sure that it's with a reputable organization. And if you have it on your own server, you need to have an IT department who can make sure that's secure. A lay person will not be able to do that just on their own. Again, hopefully that answered the question. That was a great one.
Okay, and then I think we have time for one more. So I'm going to have you get your crystal ball out now.
Uh-oh.
How do you see or foresee things changing, evolving as we move into more of a recovery phase, as this new normal kind of continues and shifts? Do you just see an increase in the reliance on digital transformation even more? Do you see it shifting more towards that artificial intelligence like you spoke of? What are your predictions with your crystal ball?
Yeah, so and we're all probably feeling what I'm about to say. This is not going away anytime soon. Now, even when a vaccine is readily available, it has to be developed and distributed. Like this is going to be part of our lives through 2021, to be quite honest. And if this virus is like the flu virus, it's going to reoccur kind of every year. But that is not an insurmountable situation. What else we're going to see is a work from home situation. It just would be shocked if we're all not in some type of work from home situation, some hybrid for some time, or at least having people come in and out of the office. So that's going to be a big part of it. Here's what you should be thinking about too. This is a reset, right? The whole idea of entrepreneurship is that someone comes in and disrupts the entire marketplace. So you don't even have to be an entrepreneur to do that. The marketplace has been disrupted by coronavirus. You just have to figure out now, hey, where are the opportunities based on our business and based on who we are? It's still going to be a while before people are comfortable interacting with you. So you need to find other ways to interact with your customers. You can certainly bring your colleagues back into your workplace, but customers may not come. So this is presume that this is the new normal for a long time, and also think to yourself, man, what can or should we be doing differently to take advantage of this, to turn, quite frankly, lemons into lemonade? I promise you, the companies who are thinking and have been thinking that way in 2020 are going to be far more successful in 2021, and quite frankly, have an opportunity to enjoy even more success in 2021 than they did, say, in the first quarter of 2020 or even 2019. This is an opportunity. It's going to be with us for a while, though. Good question.
So basically, COVID has made us all entrepreneurs, is what you're saying.
That's the hope.
Yeah, and that's the fun part of it, shifting and finding the different and new ways of doing things, being creative and tapping into those resources. So again, we thank you so much for your time and expertise today, Dr. Robinson. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Thanks again to Rural Sourcing for being a great community and business partner and supporting our program today. We hope you all enjoyed this. As I mentioned at the start of the program, we will be sending this to our group via email as a recording, which will also contain Dr. Robinson's contact information. Our next virtual event is Tuesday, October 20th, right around the corner after you enjoy your weekend. We have a wonderful presentation from Carol Fabrics on building an inclusive culture and creating that within your community. And you'll hear from 3 senior level managers from Carol Fabrics that will talk about their experience and how Carol Fabrics fosters women in the manufacturing community, who and what they are in our community. They're such a hidden gem, and they just have a great story to share with inclusivity as it pertains to culture and building that within your environment. So we are continuously finding new ways to engage and offer value programming despite the change in how we're delivering. And so we're always grateful to have you participate and any feedback that you'd like to share. Unless Dr. Robinson has any closing remarks, I will send you off for the afternoon.
Yep. Only to say thanks for joining, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity, Blair.
All right. Everyone take care. We'll see you real soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.